Was removing my ring for one night really enough to end a 6-year marriage? Why did my husband care more about a piece of jewelry on a vanity shelf than the woman who wore it every other day? I called it freedom for a night, but the empty ring dish waiting at home told a truth my friends never warned me about. My name is Seraphine Okafor, but everyone calls me Sarah, and I am 31 years old, and I work as a front desk coordinator at a boutique hotel chain where I greet guests and manage reservations and quietly believe that I am a woman whose husband has never fully understood what it means to keep a fire burning inside a marriage. I have been married for 6 years to Whale, who is 34 and works as an IT project manager at a mid-size consulting firm. And he is the kind of man who schedules server maintenance with the same enthusiasm other men reserve for date nights, who tracks our household budget on a color-coded spreadsheet updated every Sunday, and who tells me to have a good time when I leave the house in a way that sounds like a system notification rather than a sentence from someone who will miss me. On a Friday evening in March at 7:30, I stood at my bedroom vanity with both hands on the marble counter, looking at my reflection in the mirror framed by 2 warm bulb sconces. On the vanity shelf, beside a bottle of perfume and a hairbrush, sat a small velvet ring dish, navy blue, round, with a soft interior designed to hold exactly one object. I looked at my wedding ring, a white gold band with a modest diamond whale chose 6 years ago at a jeweler near his mother's house, and I slid it off my finger. I placed it in the center of the velvet dish, where it sat like a coin in a collection plate. I told myself the ring did not match my earrings, and that a married woman who cannot enjoy a single night without a band on her finger has already lost something more important than jewelry. Whale would not notice the dish, I was certain, because Whale noticed spreadsheets and server configurations and our son Io's preschool schedule, and the vanity shelf was not on any of his lists. At 8:45, I changed into my club outfit at my friend Deja's apartment, a fitted black dress I had kept in my gym bag, swapped for the jeans and blouse I wore out of the house so Whale would not see the transformation. Deja, who was 30 and a makeup artist with 20,000 Instagram followers, applied false lashes in the mirror beside me and told me the night was going to be legendary. I checked my bare ring finger in the bathroom light. The tan line was faint, a pale stripe that would disappear entirely under the club's darkness. I told Whale I was going to a wine bar with our mutual friend Priya. Priya was at home watching a documentary with her cat and had no idea her name was being used as my alibi. By 10:30 we were inside Venom Lounge, and the bass travelled up through the floor tiles and settled in my chest like a second heartbeat. The UV lights turned my white nail polish violet. A bouncer stamped my wrist with invisible UV ink, a small star shape that would glow under black light for the next 48 hours. At 11:15, a man in a fitted shirt and silver chain approached me at the bar. This was Keon Amari, 33, a part-time club promoter with an easy smile and no wedding ring. He bought me a drink, and I accepted with both hands visible, ring finger bare, and when he asked my name, I said it without adding any title that would connect me to the house where my 4-year-old son was sleeping. At 2:47 a.m., I ordered a rideshare from the curb outside Venom Lounge. The app recorded the pickup location, though I did not think about that at the time. I arrived home at 3:09, removed my heels in the hallway, and went to the bathroom to scrub the UV wristband stamp off my wrist. But the star shape persisted because UV ink is designed to last. I did not check the family iPad charging on the kitchen counter. I did not know that the rideshare app, linked to our family Apple ID, had synced a notification to that screen at 2:47 a.m., reading that my ride from Venom Lounge was arriving, and that the notification would be sitting on the lock screen when Whale picked up the iPad to check Ao's preschool schedule in the morning. Saturday at 9:45, Whale sat on the edge of the bed while I lay with a pillow over my face. He mentioned the iPad notification by name, Venom Lounge, not a wine bar, and the 2:47 a.m. timestamp, nearly 3 hours past the midnight I told him I would be home. He asked why the rideshare placed me at a nightclub when I told him I was at a wine bar with Priya, and whether Priya was actually there. He asked me to name the wine bar, the actual name and neighborhood, because he wanted to check the joint credit card for a matching charge, and if it came from Venom Lounge instead, the wine bar story would collapse before it started. I groaned into the pillow and said the wine bar was crowded, so we walked to the lounge, which was basically the same thing with louder music, and the time got away from me, and checking rideshare history like a parole officer was not a healthy marriage. I said Priya left early and I stayed with Deja. 10 minutes later, when I came out of the shower in a towel, he was standing in the bedroom doorway. He pointed at the velvet ring dish on the vanity shelf and said the ring was sitting there when he woke at 6, which meant I removed it before leaving the house, not at the club. He asked why a woman going to a wine bar with a girlfriend takes off her wedding ring before walking out the door. He asked whether the ring was off at any point during the evening when a man she did not know could see her bare hand because the combination of a nightclub, a missing ring, and a 2:47 a.m. rideshare created a picture that one question could not undo. He said the ring was a symbol he took seriously, and a wife who removes it before leaving and does not replace it until she sleeps is making a choice that goes beyond fashion. He offered a simple rule. Future nights out would not include removing the ring, and the rule would apply to both of them equally. I picked up the ring, slid it on, and said I took it off because the clasp on my clutch catches the stone, and that assigning moral weight to a piece of jewelry was the behavior of a man who confused ownership with love. The UV stamp on my inner wrist, the small star, was faintly visible as I reached for a shirt, a pale violet mark that regular light almost hid. But Whale's eye caught it for half a second before my sleeve covered it. That afternoon, while pushing Io on the swings at the park, Whale received a text from Priya. She wrote that she heard from Deja about the amazing night at Venom Lounge, and she asked why Sarah told Whale she was with Priya when Priya was home all evening. She said if her name was being used as a cover story, she wanted to know. Whale thanked her and created a new calendar entry for Monday. Copper kettle, 10:15 a.m. The velvet dish sat empty on the vanity shelf that night because I was wearing the ring as promised, but the dish itself remained on the shelf like a stage set between performances. The second Friday came 1 week later, and I told Wale it was Priya's birthday dinner at a rooftop restaurant. Priya's birthday was in November, and this was March, but Wale nodded without comment. I changed at Deja's apartment again, and we went to a rooftop bar in a different part of the city. The joint credit card registered $112 at 11:45 p.m. I came home at 1:30 a.m., and when I walked into the bedroom, the ring went back to the velvet dish. An automatic gesture now, a ritual as natural as brushing my teeth. Monday morning at 7:30, Io eating cereal at the kitchen table, Whale packing the preschool bag. I poured coffee. The joint credit card statement was open on Whale's phone, screen up beside the coffee maker. He mentioned both timestamps side by side, the $68 bar tab from the first Friday at 1:15 a.m. and the rideshare at 2:47 a.m., and said the gap was 92 minutes of activity at a nightclub I described as a wine bar. He asked what I did during those 92 minutes, because the timeline suggested I was inside the club ordering drinks until nearly 3 a.m., not leaving at midnight as I originally stated. He asked me to check my phone's photo gallery for pictures from that night, because if the evening was, as I described, the photos should show a wine bar with Priya, and if they showed a nightclub with Deja, the story was finished before it started. He said the joint credit card was shared money, and shared money spent at a location I lied about was a boundary he could not overlook. He suggested a simple rule. If a night out changed venues, I would text the new location, not for permission, but for honesty, and he would do the same. I picked up my coffee mug and said I was not going to audit my own evening minute by minute because my husband could not distinguish between fun and a felony. I said the 92 minutes were dancing, drinking water, and waiting for a ride share. Io's spoon clinked against the cereal bowl, and the refrigerator compressor cycled off in the pause that followed, leaving the kitchen hollow and quiet. Saturday morning at 10, after the second Friday, I was curled in bed. Whale stood near the vanity and mentioned the rooftop bar charge, $112, and said a birthday dinner at a restaurant would show a different merchant category and total because restaurants include food, and this was coded as a bar tab. He asked if Priya was at the dinner because he would like to call Priya and wish her a happy birthday, and if Priya said she was not there, the dinner story would end in a single phone call. He asked me to unlock my phone and show a message from Priya about the birthday. A thank you text, a cake photo, anything. Because every birthday dinner generates at least one message, and if my phone contained nothing from Priya, the evening was not what I described. He said 2 consecutive Fridays with different cover stories, the same missing ring, and credit card charges contradicting both accounts had created a pattern he should not have to accept. He offered to call Priya together, on speaker, and if she confirmed, he would apologize and never raise the subject again. I pulled the covers up and said men are hardwired to assume the worst about women who enjoy themselves, and calling Priya on speaker to verify his own wife's Friday night was the behavior of a man who had already convicted her. I said Priya's celebration was a belated thing, and I did not owe a text message receipt for every social event. The velvet ring dish on the vanity shelf held the ring once again, its faint circular indentation visible in the morning light, like a mold waiting for its cast. After his Monday meeting, Copper Kettle 10:15 a.m., Whale returned home that evening and went to bed an hour early without saying goodnight. He stopped reaching for my hand during Io's bedtime routine. His phone moved from the kitchen counter to his pocket at all times. I told myself his silence was a tantrum technique designed to guilt me into submission. At the hotel that Tuesday, I told Tamsin from the front desk and 2 other colleagues that Whale was going through a phase where he questioned everything I did and that I managed his insecurity by giving him simpler versions of my plans. My supervisor Helen, a 50-year-old operations manager who had been through her own divorce, looked at me for a moment without speaking and returned to her office. Meanwhile, at her studio apartment, Priya sat at her desk. The folder she titled Just in Case now contained 3 items. The Deja Instagram story screenshot showing me ringless at Venom Lounge, a text from Deja asking Priya to support the fabricated birthday alibi, and a group chat message where I had typed ring off equals freedom mode with 3 fire emojis the night before the first girls' night. Priya added a note to herself. If he asks directly, I will not lie. Closed the laptop, and the desk lamp threw a tight circle of light on the dark screen. Thursday evening, I checked the shared laptop to print Io's preschool form. 2 browser tabs were open from a previous session: Rideshare Trip History Export and How to Screenshot App Data for Records. I stared at them for 3 seconds, closed them, and opened the preschool portal. I told myself Whale was researching something for his IT work because exporting data and screenshotting apps was exactly what project managers do. But in bed that night, the phrase screenshot app data for records drifted through my mind, and the hum of Whale's air purifier on his nightstand sounded less like white noise and more like the low frequency of a machine running calculations I was not meant to see. On Friday morning, Priya received a direct message from Deja containing a new photo. Keon and me at the Venom Lounge bar, his arm around my waist, both of us smiling, my bare left hand visible on the counter holding a cocktail glass. Deja captioned it with champagne emojis and the words that I was living my best life. Priya saved the photo. She opened the Just in Case folder and added it as item number 4. She typed Tony Okafor's name into a new message. Tony, Whale's older brother, saved it as a draft and closed her phone. The smoking patio at Venom Lounge was a narrow concrete deck with metal railings, 2 standing heaters glowing orange, and the muffled bass from inside vibrating through the glass door. The air smelled of tobacco smoke, warm concrete, and the sharp citrus of someone's spilled gin and tonic. It was Friday at 11 p.m, and I stood beside Keon at the railing with my ring off and my wristband glowing faintly under the patio's UV strip light. He had his phone out taking selfies. One of us together, his arm around my shoulder, my bare left hand holding a cocktail glass against the metal rail. I laughed at everything he said with the volume of a woman performing freedom for herself. 3 meters away, a man named Marcus sat at a patio table with 2 friends from the electrical company, where he worked alongside Tony, Wales' brother. Marcus recognized me from Tony's last birthday party and watched for 4 minutes before opening his phone to text Tony. At 11:30, a group gathered near the patio heater. Someone asked what my husband did, and I said he managed IT projects, and then I leaned into a punchline about Whale considering antivirus updates a romantic evening, and his idea of a Friday night being a documentary and sleep by 10. The group laughed. Keon squeezed my shoulder. Marcus did not laugh. Deja filmed a boomerang of Keon and me at the railing, my face turned toward him, my ringless hand on the metal, the orange heater glow behind us, and posted it to her Instagram story with a fire emoji. Priya saw it at 11:47 and screenshotted it. The next afternoon at 3 o'clock, I arrived 20 minutes late to a barbecue at Tony's backyard. 12 people, paper plates on a folding table, charcoal smoke and grilled peppers in the air. Ao chasing Tony's daughter Amara across the grass. Whale stood near the cooler talking to Tony about a wiring project. I was wearing oversized sunglasses and a sundress, ring on today, the daytime version of myself, the one who wears the costume of a wife. At 4:15, the group settled into lawn chairs with plates of food. Someone asked about my hotel job and I pivoted. I said the hospitality industry teaches you that some people are champagne and some are tap water, and you learn the difference fast. I paused, glanced at Whale, and delivered the line. I said he was the kind of man you marry for the dental plan, not the excitement. 2 people offered short, uncomfortable laughs. The rest went silent. Tony set his barbecue tongs on the grill rack with a metallic clang, crossed his arms, and stared at me for 5 full seconds. Keisha, Tony's wife, looked at the ground. Whale lifted a water bottle and took a slow, deliberate sip, the condensations sliding down the label. In Tony's driveway at 6:30, beside the cars, Io inside watching cartoons, Whale stopped me at the passenger door. He referenced the tongs Tony set down, the metallic clang that was louder than anyone's laughter, and said his brother's silence told the yard something I apparently did not intend to communicate. He asked why 12 people needed to hear a comparison between her husband and a dental plan, and whether she considered what Io would absorb if he had been standing closer. He asked whether the excitement she contrasted him with had a name, because Marcus texted Tony that morning about seeing me at Venom Lounge with a man he did not recognize, and the word excitement suddenly had a face Whale had not met. He said he would not attend another family event where his role was to stand beside a cooler absorbing commentary on his inadequacy. He asked me to walk back inside, find Tony, and say one genuine sentence about our marriage that would repair the image I broadcast to 12 people. I opened the car door and said everyone laughed, that Keisha thought it was hilarious, and that the only person who could not take a joke about dental plans was the man who actually relied on one. That night at 10, in the bedroom, the ring was back in the velvet dish. I had taken it off at the vanity as automatically as turning off a light. Whale stood in the doorway and mentioned the 3 consecutive Friday charges: 68, 112, 85, $265 at nightlife venues in 3 weeks, each on a night I described as something other than a club. He asked whether the ring would come off again next Friday, because the dish had held it 3 Saturday mornings in a row, and the pattern matched the club nights exactly. He said $300 of shared money spent at clubs I denied visiting while wearing no ring And lying about companions was not a girls' night issue. It was a trust issue with a financial trail. He offered a 30-day pause, no clubs, no solo nights out, just the two of us and Io on Fridays, and said if the pause felt easy, it proved the clubs were optional, and if it felt impossible, it proved something else. I stood from the vanity and said I was not a teenager being grounded, and that a 30-day pause from having a social life was what controlling husbands propose when they want to cage their wives without saying the word. I grabbed a pillow and said I was sleeping in the living room because this bedroom had become an interrogation room. The diamond flashed once in the overhead light as the door swung shut. After his Saturday meeting, Copper Kettle 8:30 a.m., Whale moved his wallet and keys from the kitchen counter to the inside pocket of his work bag. He opened the mail alone at the front door. He asked over dinner whether the mortgage autopay was linked to joint checking or savings. I said checking. He nodded. That evening, I passed the living room, and his laptop showed a spreadsheet with columns of dates and dollar amounts that he minimized before I could read the headers. On Monday, Tony called Whale to confirm what Marcus had seen and to say that the barbecue joke was not humor, but public disrespect, the kind he recognized from a friend's marriage before it collapsed. Chioma Okafor's dining room smelled of jollof rice and fried plantain, and the warm spice of pepper soup simmering on the stove, and the heavy mahogany table was covered with a white tablecloth and a centerpiece of silk flowers and 6-place settings on bone china she bought when Whale was born. Ao sat in a booster chair between Whale and me, eating rice with his fingers, and the atmosphere was warm enough on the surface that I told myself the barbecue incident had blown over and the family was resetting. Tony's eyes moved between me and Whale with a focused awareness I chose not to read. Then Ao said it. He dropped a piece of plantain, and while picking it up, he announced in his clear 4-year-old voice that Mommy told Auntie Deja on the phone that Daddy is no fun anymore and she needs a real night out. Chioma's fork stopped midway to her mouth. The pepper soup on the stove bubbled through the kitchen doorway, a low, rolling sound that filled the space between Io's words and the table's silence. Tony's hand moved to his water glass, but did not lift it. Whale placed his palm flat on the tablecloth. Keisha looked at me with an expression holding both pity and recognition. I laughed immediately and said Io was adorable and confused, that he overheard a FaceTime where Deja was watching a reality show. Io insisted Mommy was on the phone in the bedroom and the door was open and he heard her say, "Real night out," and "no fun." In Chioma's kitchen at 7 o'clock, dinner over, Io watching cartoons in the living room, Whale referenced the pepper soup still simmering, the low bubble that filled the silence after Io's words, and said that sound would be what he remembered from tonight. He asked whether I had spoken to Deja about him being no fun on a phone call inside our bedroom, because a 4-year-old standing in a hallway absorbing that language was a child whose home had been compromised by conversations that should never happen within earshot. He asked me to check my call log with Deja from the past 2 weeks, because if the conversation was about a TV show, the call duration should match a quick video chat, not a 20-minute bedroom phone call. He said Ao's words changed this from a marriage disagreement to a parenting issue. He offered to call Deja together on speaker, and if she confirmed the reality show story, the subject was permanently closed. My eyes filled with quick tears, and I said he was weaponizing our son's words at his grandmother's dinner table, and that a father who built a prosecution from a toddler's sentence was not protecting the family, but dismantling it. I looked directly at Chioma and asked whether she thought a wife should have her phone audited because a child repeated a phrase from a show. Chioma dried a plate slowly and said she thought a mother should know whether her bedroom door is open when she speaks about her husband, because a child's ears are always closer than a parent assumes. Monday afternoon, Priya sent Tony a message saying her conscience would not let her stay silent. Tony forwarded it to Whale, who called Priya that evening while I was at Deja's apartment. Priya sent 4 screenshots, the Instagram story showing me ringless at Venom Lounge, the boomerang of Keon and me on the smoking patio, the rideshare location history showing the 2:47 a.m. pickup, and the group chat message where I typed, "Ring off equals freedom mode," the night before the first girls' night. Whale reviewed each screenshot and asked if Priya would confirm the timeline if necessary. She said yes. Tuesday evening, I sat beside Whale on the bed after Io fell asleep and said I wanted to be honest. I said the wine bar story was a simplification. I went to Venom Lounge, not a wine bar. I said the birthday dinner was actually a rooftop bar, not Priya's birthday. I said I took the ring off because it catches on things while dancing, not to appear single. I said I met a promoter named Keon who bought drinks and we exchanged numbers, but nothing happened beyond selfies. I said I was sorry for lying about the locations and would cut back on nights out. Whale listened and asked one question. If the ring removal was about dancing, why did I type "ring off equals freedom mode" in the group chat the night before the first club visit? Because the phrase was written before I left the house, which meant the removal was premeditated, not practical. I asked how he saw the group chat. He said it did not matter. What mattered was whether freedom mode meant what it appeared to mean. I said it was a joke between friends. He nodded slowly, thanked me for telling him more than before, stood, walked to the living room desk, and sat for 20 minutes. Through the bedroom door, I watched him write on a notepad, tear off the page, and place it inside a padded envelope I had never seen before. He sealed it and put it in his work bag. I had confirmed the club visits, the fabricated alibis, the exchanged number, and the premeditated ring removal. Every gap the digital evidence left open, my own words now filled. In the living room at 10:30, Whale mentioned the padded envelope and said it contained notes he had been keeping because the contradictions over 4 weeks exceeded what memory alone could organise. He asked whether Keon had contacted me since the last club night. He asked what name Keon was saved under in my phone, because a real name meant transparency and an emoji or nickname meant disguise, and the difference said more than any conversation. He said every approach he had tried, gentle questions, evidence, compromises, pauses, had been met with mockery, tears, or shutdown, and he would not try a 6th time. He said the next step would be administrative. I crossed my arms and said Keon was saved under a DJ emoji because he was a DJ and everyone under 40 saves contacts with emojis, and that turning a phone contact into a federal investigation was the natural endpoint of a man who tracked rideshare receipts. I walked to the bedroom and closed the door firmly. Thursday morning at 6 a.m., Whale removed a small leather portfolio from the living room desk drawer, something I had never seen, placed the sealed padded envelope inside along with a folded printout from the printer tray and a sticky note reading Fry branch appointment, zipped it closed, and put it in his work bag. He made Io scrambled eggs and toast cut into triangles, packed a lunchbox with a note reading that Ao was his favourite person. And when I came downstairs at 6:45, he was singing a nursery rhyme with all his warmth directed at the child, the cereal, and the lunchbox. At everything except me. Monday night at 9:15, the dishwasher hummed below the bedroom floor while Whale sat on the edge of the bed with his shoes still on, and I brushed my hair at the vanity. He mentioned my close friend's story posted from Deja's apartment Saturday at 10 p.m, captioned, "Self-care Saturday, no boys allowed." 3 hours past the time I told him I would be home. He asked whether I had told anyone the same version of events I gave him during the bed conversation because he had heard from multiple sources that the circulating story did not include Keon, the ring removal, or the location lies. He asked me to name one person outside this bedroom who had heard the words "ring off equals freedom mode" from my own mouth, because if nobody knew about that phrase, I was hiding the most revealing sentence I ever wrote from every person I claimed to trust. He offered one final path, a single counselling session, 1 hour this week, neutral ground, and said he had already found 3 counsellors in our zip code. I set the hairbrush on the vanity shelf beside the ring dish and said a man who researched counsellors on a Monday night had already written the ending of his own marriage and was shopping for a co-signer. The dishwasher shifted cycles below, a low, grinding transition through the floor, mechanical and indifferent. And the hairbrush displaced the ring dish half an inch on the marble, the scrape of velvet against stone the only sound between my refusal and his silence. Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock, I sat in my younger sister Nina's living room, nursing textbooks stacked on a shelf, framed family photos, a grey sectional, a floor lamp casting warm light. I had a glass of wine and the urgency of a woman recruiting an ally before losing the narrative entirely. I told Nina that Whale had become financially controlling since the first girls' night, tracking credit cards, monitoring rideshare, interrogating me about my ring, scheduling mysterious coffee meetings. I said his family was running a campaign, that Priya betrayed our friendship, and that Kioma weaponized Io's comment. I did not mention the fabricated locations, the freedom mode message, the Keon selfies, the 3 consecutive premeditated ring removals, the false alibi, or the fact that I typed freedom mode before the first ring ever left my finger. Nina listened and nodded. Then she asked one question, whether I ever took my ring off before going to the club. I paused half a second too long. I said I removed it once because of dancing. Nina asked if that was the same thing Priya told their mother about, because Adaze called Nina that morning and mentioned a screenshot containing the words "ring off equals freedom mode." I said Priya fabricated the screenshot. Nina looked at me with the careful clinical assessment of a nursing student trained to identify when a patient's self-report does not match the chart. And she did not argue, but she did not agree. And the distance between those two silences separated an ally from a witness. After I left, Nina called Adayas and said the version I gave her did not match the evidence Adayas described from Priya. Adayas said she knew. Nina asked what they should do. Adayas said the man with the leather portfolio had already decided, and the only thing remaining was to protect Io. Friday afternoon on Adayas's porch, petunias in the planters, the scent of fresh-cut grass drifting from the neighbour's yard, I arrived to drop Io off for the weekend. Adayas told me to sit. She laid out the boomerang of Keon and me, the freedom mode screenshot, Io's dinner comment word for word from Kioma, and the 3 versions I had given: wine bar, birthday dinner, dancing catches the ring. She said a story that needs 5 different covers is not a story but a tunnel, built by someone hiding where they are going. She said she loved me but would not stand at the tunnel's exit, pretending the light was daylight when it was headlights coming the other way. Friday night at 10 o'clock, Io at Adayas's, the living room lit by a single table lamp. Whale sat on the sofa with the leather portfolio on the coffee table, zipped, slim, unremarkable. He said someone who had always been on my side called him that day with concerns, and when a person's own family questioned the narrative had failed. He asked me to sit down and tell the complete truth. Every club night, every lie, every conversation with Keon, every time the ring came off, and why. He asked me to look at the portfolio on the coffee table and tell him whether its contents supported my version or contradicted it. He said words had been exhausted and his voice held no negotiation, only the tone of someone reading a final page. I crossed my arms and said men who built leather portfolios and scheduled bank appointments and sat on sofas like boardroom executives during a marriage conversation were not husbands but auditors who married the wrong woman. I said if he wanted to handle things through channels, he should know that I had people who understood a woman taking off her ring to dance is not a criminal. I walked to the bedroom and closed the door. Not a slam, but a deliberate closure that sounded like a verdict I had already handed myself. Whale stayed on the sofa. He unzipped the portfolio, removed the padded envelope, placed it beside the case, and wrote a date on a sticky note, tomorrow's bank appointment, and pressed it to the cover. He turned off the lamp, and the green pulse of the Wi-Fi router on the shelf was the only light remaining in the room, its indicator blinking at steady intervals over the date written on the sticky note. Friday morning he returned from Copper Kettle 7 a.m. in a pressed shirt and slacks, placed a new manila folder in the portfolio, hung his wedding anniversary dress shirt on the bathroom door, and when I asked what appointment required the good shirt, he said the bank meeting we discussed, the one at 10:30 to review account structures, and I should be ready by 10. His car was already parked facing the street, pointing out as if the direction had been decided before the engine started. The bank branch was a modern glass front office with marble effect floor tiles and the ambient hum of a building that processes numbers without emotion, and the air carried carpet cleaner and the faint ozone of laser printers running behind the teller counter. Whale and I sat at consultation desk 2, and a bank officer named Mr. Adeyemi opened our joint account on his screen while Whale placed the leather portfolio on the desk. At 10:35, a woman in a dark blazer entered from the lobby, confirmed my name, and handed me a sealed envelope thicker than any bank document. She said I was being served with a formal petition for divorce filed by Whale Okafor, which included a motion for temporary exclusive possession of the marital home, a proposed custody schedule designating Whale as primary residential parent during evaluation, immediate separation of all joint accounts and credit lines, and a request for forensic review of joint expenditures for the 90 days preceding the filing, with specific reference to nightclub charges, rideshare fees, and cash withdrawals on nights when my stated locations did not match the digital record. The printer behind the counter whirred and spat a page into the silence that followed. The exhibits attached to the 14 stamped pages included the rideshare history from 3 consecutive Friday pickups at Venom Lounge, the credit card trail totaling $265 at venues I denied visiting, the ring-off equals freedom mode, screenshot, establishing premeditation, the smoking patio boomerang of Keon and me, Deja's Instagram story showing me ringless at the bar, Priya's signed statement confirming she was used as a false alibi, along with Deja's text requesting Priya support the fabricated birthday story, a 9-contradiction timeline Whale compiled, and a reference to Io's statement at the family dinner corroborated by Kioma, Tony, and Keisha. I told Mr. Adeyemi that Whale was not thinking clearly and this was a marital dispute, not a financial matter, and he said he could not comment on personal situations and suggested I consult a professional. A customer at the next desk glanced over and looked away. I believed that taking off a ring was freedom, that freedom mode was a phrase between friends, that the velvet dish on the vanity shelf was just a place to put jewelry for the night. But the dish was not a jewelry box, it was a ledger. Every Friday it registered an absence, and every Saturday morning the indentation remained, the shape of what I removed, pressed permanently into the velvet, visible to anyone who looked. The man who looked was not insecure or controlling or obsessive. He was a project manager who read patterns for a living, and the pattern I created, ring off, lie on, club charged, location hidden, repeat, was the clearest project plan he had ever been handed. I designed my freedom. He documented it. And documentation, unlike a ring, does not come off. Within 10 days, the motion granted Whale the house, and I moved into a studio apartment 3 blocks from the hotel where I worked, furnished with a fold-out couch and a window facing the service alley. Ayo's room at the house stayed untouched. The toy bin, the rocket nightlight, the dandelion he picked pressed between tape on a popsicle stick. My autopay for car insurance, phone, and a subscription box I forgot to cancel all bounced within the week, and after the studio deposit and groceries, my solo checking account held $340. Deja stopped returning calls for 4 days and finally texted that she needed space because the boomerang she posted was now an exhibit and she did not want to be deposed. Nina called once, listened for 3 minutes, and said she loved me but could not defend what the evidence showed. The girls' night group chat went silent. Priya removed herself from the thread entirely. Helen at the hotel offered 3 days of leave and a referral to the Employee Assistance Program after 2 guests overheard me crying in the lobby restroom during my shift. Keon never replied to my last message, and 2 days later his profile showed a photo with a different woman at Venom Lounge, his arm around her waist, in the same pose from the smoking patio boomerang, the symmetry precise and indifferent. 9 days after the bank, I sent Whale a 4-minute voice message saying the petition was excessive, that removing a ring for a few nights did not justify dismantling a family, that Io needed both parents under one roof, and that I would delete Keon's number, quit the club, wear the ring every day, and attend whatever counselling he chose. He replied the next morning with 3 sentences. All communication about the marriage, finances, and custody should go through the contact on page 3 of the petition. Ao's schedule was attached as a calendar file. He wished me well. No greeting, no sign-off, just 3 sentences and a small blue calendar icon containing every remaining obligation between us. Closure snapshot. The first custody exchange happens Saturday morning at the front door. I bring Ao's overnight bag and a stuffed dinosaur from the pharmacy. Whale stands in the doorway in a t-shirt and joggers, Ao beside him holding the dried dandelion taped to a popsicle stick. Through the open door the hallway is clean, and on the bedroom vanity, visible from the front entrance, the velvet ring dish sits empty on its shelf, the circular indentation catching the morning light. No ring inside, no ring on my finger, just the dish and its impression. A navy blue circle holding the shape of something placed there thousands of times and removed one time too many. Whale nods once. Ao waves. The door closes and the deadbolt turns with the sound of a mechanism completing the function it was built for.